What am I doing? Sometimes I'll just catch myself asking that question as I cozy up with things that are from a time long before I was born that for some reason offer me comfort. I think I can recall the very moment that this began for me. And it was in my grandparents' living room, settling into another afternoon with my grandpa, watching some of his favourite old films. The film that I'm cozying up with today is actually my nana's favourite, and it means more today than it ever usually would. As a child, I found myself marvelling at the beauty and charm of eras gone by through motion picture. The dresses, the furniture, the music, and I developed a nostalgia for an era I'd never experienced from a memory that I very much did. And I'm not alone. Yesterday was Remembrance Sunday. Armistice Day, which celebrates the end of World War I, is tomorrow. So that makes today the perfect opportunity to explore the concepts of remembrance, nostalgia, and keeping the past alive. But for me, these dates mean a little bit more. Because today, Monday, the 10th of November, is the anniversary of my grandpa's death and also my nan's birthday. Yes, life's timing is a funny old thing. Which is exactly why I'm settling in to watch one of my nan's favourite films that I've actually never seen, and I'm also wearing a jumper that she knitted me herself and her ring. Yes, today is very much a day of reflection for me, during a period already dedicated to remembrance. And I do find that people who gather a certain sense of comfort from nostalgia tend to be, not always, people who have lost someone. And I find that bereavement is intrinsically linked, sometimes, to those that want to keep the past alive and honour the past. As someone with a deep interest in history, particularly the 1940s, I already know how important it is to pause and look back on all of those that gave their lives. I mean, I have heard first-hand accounts of those on the front line and those on the home front. I have worked with charities that actually use nostalgia to help people who suffer from cognitive diseases like dementia, and I've even learnt about my own family's history serving at war. But when it comes to our present, does looking to the past actually do us any good? Well, like many things, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Psychologists often describe nostalgia as a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past. I'll admit, I am a very emotive and sentimental person. For example, when I hold this teacup, I don't just see an object. I see all the hands that cherished it and the people who found comfort in the same ritual as I do now. Yes, my brain, it just thinks too deeply about things, and if I didn't use this teacup enough, I would actually end up feeling sorry for it. I can't be alone. I can't be alone in that. Surely there's people out there who also feel sorry or have feelings towards inanimate objects as I do. But research has shown that nostalgia can actually help us find meaning in life, and it can help us deal with negative emotions. It can improve our mood, our social bonds, our self-esteem, and help us combat loneliness.
If you're feeling lonely or disconnected, I recommend you experiment with taking the edge off with a dose of nostalgia.
And it's very common, especially these days, or maybe it just feels that way. But one study did report that 68 participants found themselves feeling nostalgic at least once a week or more. Why? Because people are storytellers. We build our identity through meaning and memory, and this is exactly why nostalgia often features a person we were close to, a place or a moment of significance. And in today's world, with its fast-paced technology and constant change and less time to pause, nostalgia can act as a kind of anchor.
Remember when we all finally came up to headquarters?
That was like 30 seconds ago, nostalgia.
Yeah, those were the days.
Nostalgia. Now, when I talk about nostalgia, I'm obviously talking about two distinct types, which is our collective nostalgia, when we look back on our shared history, and also our personal nostalgia. Now, technically, having a nostalgia for an era you did not experience is called anemoia, but I think the concepts kind of roll into one, so I'm going to talk about both these avenues today because there's a tension. Nostalgia is very much bittersweet and can sometimes have us longing for an experience that we simply cannot return to, or a rose-tinted view of the world that likely wasn't as rosy as we'd like to think. And for that reason, nostalgia can be seen as unproductive or even a weakness.
Nostalgia is truly one of the great human weaknesses, second only to the neck.
So let's bring it a little bit closer to home for me. Now, this is the case that my grandpa took with him when he was serving in Cyprus in the RAF. And it is honestly an absolute treasure trove of just incredible points of history. There's a few things of my grandpa's in here, but there's a couple of things from his time serving in the RAF and the things that he decided to keep for so many years that I'd really like to show you. There he is. Butter boy. Bless him, he looks so handsome. Sometimes he would pretend to be Tinky Winky from the Teletubbies, which is a British childhood show, if you've ever seen it. And he would pop this on top of his head for the grandchildren and dance about. Wow, so many photographs of him with the boys. Certificate of service for the Royal Air Force. We've even got, I guess this would be his casual wear during his service, but yeah, that's what he would have been relaxing in. So we kept like random moments of his time during his service. For example, he must have gone to the cinema at one time, the Royal Air Force Cinema Corporation. Have some downtime, you know, watch a film. Some sort of football match that he played. Well, whatever it was, kickoff started at 2:30 in the afternoon. A poem that obviously meant a lot to him. More cinema stuff, cinema stuff. Oh, and look at this. This is an unopened stick of gum from probably around 1954. Let me just see if I can show you that. There you go. That is a Wrigley's Spearmint chewing gum, unopened from 1954. Obviously, he just maybe forgot that he had it in his pocket, and then when he found it again, he just never parted with it. So there we go. I'm not going to try it, of course, but no, it doesn't smell minty anymore. And probably the most incredible thing is the fact that my grandpa kept every single one of his letters during his service. So absolutely every piece of correspondence that he either received or sent to his family back in Bridgend, Wales, is here in this leather satchel. And I have read some of them. And it's really, I don't know, it cuts me really deep to think of him as a young man, as a boy, really, writing to home and talking about how much, you know, he missed it. And yeah, he was a really incredible man. And, you know, it's been a long time, really, since he's gone. Well, maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but sometimes it feels like a really long time. Sometimes it feels like only yesterday, but I really do miss him. He was a little gem of this world. And he was my best friend, along with my nan. They meant the world to me. And I can't help be this emotional and sentimental because they really are in everything that I do now. And I want them to be. I want them to be with me in everything that I do. And today, I feel that, I guess, more than I usually would. He loved the Cinema Corporation. He was always a big fan of films, hence why I am the way that I am. There's his certificate for outstanding ability on the number 17 course as a teleprinter and operator. He was a very fast typist, I must say. Oh, and this is some photos of my Uncle Don. Now, he actually survived the Lancastria, which is unbelievable to me because there were so few survivors, and I don't think they ever really knew the total number of casualties, even today. But this was something that happened during World War II that didn't really get the publicity it deserved because Churchill didn't want to lower the morale because we'd only recently suffered Dunkirk. But my Uncle Don survived the Lancastrian and then went on to be a prisoner of war under Japanese rule for 4 years. So yeah, that's my Uncle Don there. That might be his cousin. And for some reason, that's Clark Gable. So obviously he spotted Clark Gable on his travels once and just snapped a little photo of him. Now, my grandpa didn't actually serve during the 1940s because he was but a baby. But obviously the 1940s is something that we enjoyed in cinema together and has just become an era that I'm deeply interested in. But when I think about that as an era, for example, my Uncle Don did serve during World War II. It's an era that is rich in lessons, but also fraught with hardship. And thinking on the reality it can be pretty sobering for me. Yes, people did live with less. They repaired, shared, connected. They found community in adversity and joy in the small moments. But if I idolise the past too much, I risk distorting reality, which researchers call rosy retrospection, which can happen both for lived experiences and history, remembering the past more positively than it was. And this is when nostalgia can become escapism, aesthetic without depth. And I can sometimes be guilty of aesthetic without depth. Sometimes. I do try to not remain ignorant to the harsh realities of history, but at the same time, I'm also wearing socks with little mallard ducks on them that actually go all the way up to my knee. Ooh, there you go, a little bit of leg. So I'm often in two minds of the aesthetic joy that I get from celebrating eras gone by, but not wearing the old rose-tinted specs. I think many people look back, not because the world was easy or perfect, far from it, but because it models things that we've grown numb to. Slower pace, connection, simplicity, and the little things. When I hold a vintage teacup, I'm acknowledging what this object represents. Relations, place, memory, continuity. And yes, I had to have a nibble on one of my slices of toast because I was getting rumblies in my tumblies. Nostalgia is also sold to us. Marketers use it as a tool. The past is packaged and repackaged and used to pull on the old heartstrings. But at the same time, we live in a world that often honours the new, the now, and the next. So it begs the question, what even is the value of old in the new age? Well, I think many of us can't deny that one thing that the past does hold is wisdom. Should we get another log on that fire? And it's not just our collective past, it's our personal past. I mentioned earlier my grandparents, my childhood, the sound of knitting needles clacking together or my nan's perfume wafting through the air, old films, charity shop outings. These memories make me who I am. And are they sometimes unbearably painful? Yes. But psychology tells us that nostalgia isn't just about longing for better times. It can actually soothe us in times of change or distress. And one study found that earlier distress predicted higher nostalgia, and higher nostalgia predicted lower distress 6 months later. So yes, our memories matter and they ground us, but they can also connect us with positive aspects that really can help lower your anxiety, or at least in my eyes. So continuity, the sense that we are more than this moment, which, I don't know about you, gives me a lot of comfort. Perspective, the reminder that hardship has been met before and connection can be found. And gratitude, remembering what was small but significant and what we might be overlooking now. And if nostalgia can truly help with self-esteem and meaning, that's real. And if it can help people feel connected in an era of loneliness, that matters. So nostalgia isn't always about escaping the present, it's about informing it. And you can ask yourself, what is something from another era that matters now? Perhaps it's a handwritten letter to an old friend that you've lost touch with, or picking up an instrument that you used to love to play, or lighting a candle for someone that you've lost. This goes far beyond old school charm, because it impacts your story now. I mean, do I love the aesthetic of old school charm? Absolutely. But I try to use this period of remembrance as a time to pause, reflect, and feel grateful. And maybe the very best way that we can honour the past is to live like it taught us something. And for that reason, I do not believe that nostalgia is pointless, at least when it's purposeful, to help us make sense of our present and slow down enough to notice what really mattered. Thank you so much for being here on this channel where we can unapologetically celebrate the charm of vintage, the magic of memory, the rich potential of looking back to help us live intentionally in our present. Because of this community, I now have the honour of speaking at a charity event this coming Saturday, which pretty much perfectly sums up this entire video. A 1940s Big Bash with Cynthia Spencer Hospice, and it's all thanks to you. I'll also be travelling back in time to an era that I talk about a lot on this channel this December, which we haven't really done in a while, and this time it's going to be really special. So thank you again for joining me as I share my thoughts and feelings and we traverse this life together. And please, if you'd like to, leave a comment below and tell me about a time or era that you learnt the most from, and I shall see you in the next one.